Hi, Sharon. Oh, I can't hear you. Oh, hang on, we gotta unmute.
There we
Okay,
go.
there we go. How's it going?
It's great. What's going on?
Oh, so good, so good. Well, thank you for being here. We're gonna just kind of jump into just introducing a little bit. We're waiting for our other guest, our other co-Women for Mentors enthusiast, Ginny Overbay. But so welcome to Women for Mentors roundtable discussion called W4M Roundtable. We're really excited, and this is a really great way for us to actually kick off and celebrate. This is since our 1 year inception here in May. So, I mean, I think what a great way to just celebrate that and kick that off.
Well, I'm going to start off by saying congratulations. I mean, how many businesses in general make it through their first year? And I mean, this was such a labor of love for you. And to have seen this from its inception, I'm like a little proud mama.
Oh, thank you. I know you played such a big part and honestly in getting us here today. And so, I'm so excited. And like you said, it is a labor of love. It is a business. And for anybody wanting to start a nonprofit, no, it is a real business. It's a baby that needs a lot of nurturing. but
For sure.
but yeah, so I mean, really excited about doing this. The whole idea behind this concept for W4M Roundtable is just to create this atmosphere, this group platform for that mentorship to thrive and to live. And so going forward, we plan on just having these monthly meetings where we just get together with really great women, talk about important topics, get to pick their brains, and just have a really relaxed environment where people attending can just join in. They can ask questions through chat and just, feel really open and welcome and just able to be a part of a tribe. So I'm really excited about just us kicking this off. And I know we're kind of keeping this a little tight knit for our first one because, it's our first trip to the rodeo with this, but.
But you're so right. I mean, women are so collaborative and we need community, no question about it. And so I think it's such a unique position that you have put out in the world, and that is where you're really taking account both sides of things. You've got the mentorship side of things, and then the women that are maybe in a pivoting part of their lives and that sort of thing. And so, I just love the holistic approach, and that just screams that community. That's just part of it. So I mean, I just feel like you've embodied this just fantastic idea. So kudos.
Thank
Anyway.
you. Thank you. Well, I'm so glad that we're able to get together today. And I just wanted to just give a little nod to some of our supporters that have gotten us here. So we have Pinnacle Strategic Advisors, we have Grant Lauder Jewelry, and we have Aurelia Lux Collection. And these are just a few businesses that have really just helped support us in various ways to help get us to this position. We can't do what we do without that support. And so we look forward to really just connecting with more businesses in the area, in Northeast Georgia and here in Western North Carolina, and beyond, because we really would like to see this grow even more. We live in such a world that's really hard, I think harder for people to connect and to be able to create that atmosphere where they can have that support and that backing, especially in pivotal times for them. So it really means a lot. And we're not negating the men or anything in this, but yes, this is an organization for women. and it's really just, it came from my heart and my experience as a woman who I can identify with, being, a woman that went back to school myself. So I just wanted to give a little shout out to those that are helping us to just move forward and keep growing. So with that being said, I think it would be a good time for us just to delve a little bit into how the organization kind of came about, which you had a big part in, Sharon. So for me, I was years ago, I found myself as a single mom returning to education. And during that time, it was so just tough. I mean, there was just so much weight on my shoulders, and you really just, I felt like there was no fail, there was not a lot of room, and just, you know, having to provide for my children, and, you know, have a roof over our head and go to school full time. So the things that really helped me at that time were the connections I had, with other women that were supporting me through it, my advisors and organizations I was able to be a part of, and also the scholarships that I received. And, you know, whether they were, you know, $1,000 scholarships or $500 scholarships, whatever it was, it's just a little bit to take a little edge off. So I felt really fortunate during that time, but I also feel like I had to really extend myself to find those opportunities and really put myself out there. And so I just always thought in the back of my head while I was at school, I'm like, I really want to pay it forward one day. I want to create this environment, and I want to have this be more accessible and more available to other people in situations like this. So skip ahead to a little over a year ago, you and I got connected through happenstance, and just gabbing away. And I was telling you about a whole different concept and idea, which is kind of what we're doing today, having this roundtable discussion. But you know, I ended up telling you all about my idea for having this nonprofit, and you are just such an encourager. They were like, go for it. I was like, yeah, okay, I will.
You know, it's funny because I mean, the idea has to be good for you to have that cheerleader out there. And so it really was funny because we were on the phone, just we had just met. And in fact, Jeff Cunningham, who put us together, I'm not even sure we had a real reason for coming together. He just said, you know, he's like the I know a guy, and we need to
Yeah.
know each other. And so we both kind of trusted that. And he was not wrong, of course.
Mhm.
And I'm not even sure how this concept even came up on that phone. I think we were just kind of talking about our businesses and life. And you said that you had this kind of back of the napkin kind of idea,
Yeah.
and I couldn't let it go. I'm going, okay, hold on. This
Yeah,
you've got to do this. So I
exactly.
remember though we talked, I don't know, maybe a month, 6 weeks, 2 months later. I don't remember what the time frame was, but that very next time we talked, you had already incorporated and had all, I mean, it was
Yeah.
boom, you know, you got that fire lit, and
Yeah.
there's been no looking back, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, on this note, I'm gonna let Ginny's available and here to be a part of this discussion, which will be really great to have her weigh in on too, because she was actually there kind of back when I was in school and experiencing all that. So, hi, Ginny.
Hey, I made it.
Hey, good to see you. So Sharon and I were just talking about just kind of the inception of Women for Mentors. And, you know, we're kind of kicking off celebrating with this roundtable our 1 year anniversary, basically, which is exciting. But we were just talking about how, you know, this all came about being back at school, the idea of it. And you were there back during that time. That's where you and I met. So perfect timing jumping in right now.
I'm ready.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, I mean, that's really, you know, I think my story of why, you know, I have the passion for being a part of this and wanting to be on this. And so I would love to just kind of hear from each of you too, just you know, your reasoning for wanting to be a part of Women for Mentors and what it means to you. And Ginny, I think, you know, a little bit of your background too, because obviously you know, you went through a similar experience I did returning to education, and just, you know, what your takeaway is from that. So
Yeah, I would say that for me, being in a similar situation where I didn't go to college right out of high school, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Um, Honestly, was kind of tired of school at that point, like a lot of people are. I wasn't ready, to commit to anything at that time, which of course led to several years of just sort of doing things, having jobs, and kind of getting by. So for me, I think that getting to a point where I really needed to make a decision and take that step kind of had to. And knowing that even though it was really scary, it was just something that I needed to do. I think a lot of people will face that and are just a little too afraid to take that step. And the financial aspect of it can be really frightening. And so I think that that holds a lot of people back. And so knowing that there is at least one layer of protection, you could say, or support, I think makes it a lot easier for someone to be a little more courageous to take that step. I mean, there's never going to be a perfect time to make a change, I think is what it boils down to. Sometimes you just have to do it, even though maybe the timing isn't 100% awesome, but you know that you're at that place where you just have to kind of go for it. So if you have a group that is supporting you, friends that are supporting you, family, or even a scholarship or a grant or something like that, I think it can really enable a person to do it even though they're afraid and accept that timing's not going to be perfect, but I'm just going to go for it. So that's kind of what happened for me, that I just had to do it. And I didn't know how it was going to go or if I would be successful or how it was going to work out. But just having to go for it.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think, similarly, like, that we both experienced just, the struggles of just feeling like you can't fail. And so I think the cool thing is it kind of gives that initiative to keep, paying it forward, trying to help the next people out there and see them succeed. And I know there, while we were in school, there were so many women that would come speak at the school and talk with us and stuff. And just how much, even just those little moments of encouragement were so helpful. So awesome. I'm so glad that you're a part of this with me and that, we're doing this. So Sharon, how about you? I know you touched on it a little bit, but just, what got you excited about being a part of Women for Mentors?
Well, it's funny because so I was not the non-traditional student, so I'm not coming at it from that standpoint of having lived that, but I'm probably coming more from a standpoint of finding myself in a very male-dominated environment when I was out of school. And so, working in manufacturing and construction and solar energy and all of these types of areas, engineering, that there weren't a lot of women. And I don't ever feel like I was held back because I was female. I kind of pressed forward and, but I also, you always start second guessing yourself, like, okay, whatever. And I really felt like what I needed to do is ensure that the collaborativeness of women is taken care of, but then also the mentorship. And so probably that mentorship was the piece that I really resonated with. I have an Empowered Women networking group and an Empowered Women podcasting or podcast, and which I've interviewed you on right when you were first launching the website and everything. But I remember it was so interesting after we had that phone call and you were saying, hey, this is actually becoming real. I remember making a presentation to my Empowered Women group saying, this brain trust right here will serve as fantastic mentors. I mean, this is something that we have to do because all of those women, or most of those women, are in the sustainability world, which is a very male dominated world. And, it is one of those things where, I think that's just different, if you have, I don't know, battled your way through that. I don't know what the word is there. So there is something to give back to that person to make it where they don't have to reinvent that wheel as they're coming up, if you will. And so so the mentorship piece of it really speaks to me.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, I think you touched on something so important there is just whatever we can pass on and help the next person rise up to the next, because that's really, I think the more we look at it, like we're not in competition, we're sitting, and the more we help each other. And this is, like I said, not to take away from anyone else or anything, but just the more, as women, that we can do these things together and help see each other succeed, we'll all rise up together. And so, I mean, I love that. And I've always, approached, relationships with other women as like, well, what can you teach me? Like, I mean, especially, when people have walked in different shoes than you have, and you're like, okay, well, you've learned different lessons in life. Like, help make it a little easier on me. I want to know what you know. So, I love that. And the mentorship part is such a key component, because oftentimes I think we think of mentoring as something that you do with just like, children or very young people. And just because we become adults doesn't mean we don't need to like learn anything, or we don't need that support or understanding. I mean, we all walk into new roles and we're all just faking it till we make it and doing our best.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I mean, with that, moving on is that I think one of the other things that really comes out of this is the advocacy that creates. And I think, being able to understand how to advocate for ourselves and to speak up for ourselves in these situations, and also being able to advocate for others, which is, I think, something that we're doing in this space, the mentorship and the space that we are creating. And we have big goals for this, right? So like, we want this to become something bigger outside of our regions. Right now, it's kind of in the locations where you have your empowered women, a group. And then also over here in Western North Carolina, where Ginny and I are based. And so, but we want to see it grow, and we want to see it be really available to people too, which is why we're doing this online and keeping this space like this, so people that would normally connect with each other can connect and meet. But I mean, I think, part of that mentorship, like I said, is the advocacy. And I, like earlier touched on, when I was in school, I felt like I sometimes had to go a little bit further out of my way to find those connections, to find that, I had to put myself out there. And I recognize not everybody is comfortable doing that. But being that I've gone through a little bit more life, I'm in a place where I'm okay doing that. So, I mean, I think, I'd be curious just to hear from y'all some experiences you have in just advocating for yourself, and also, how did you learn to advocate for yourself? So Sharon, maybe we could start with you. How did you learn to advocate, for yourself and be able to be the boss woman that you are today?
Oh, wow. It's so funny. My family has joked that I'm the youngest of three, and yet they call me the general. And so I have ordered my family around, I think, my entire life. So I think it's kind of in my in my DNA that it's like, I know there's supposed to be structure here. There's supposed to be order, and we're supposed to be doing this. We're supposed to eat at 3. We're supposed to, and so I think that that's kind of my personality. But also, I don't care what your personality is when you first maybe take on a new role, or you go into a different organization, a networking group, or something like that. You still might have that timidity or something like that. But I think overall, I have I've just never had a real rejection from that. I've had rejection in my life, of course, but I have not had a situation where I've come into a group. Maybe though, it is because, if you go into a volunteer organization, I don't have a problem rolling up my sleeves and saying, hey, I want to jump in. And so as that basic volunteering organization, all of a sudden you get thrust onto the board of directors because, wow, she's willing to actually put some work in and that sort of thing. And so I guess you kind of reap what you sow in that scenario. And I think, sitting back and not taking life as a spectator sport, but just kind of jumping in and seeing where you can help, probably makes all of the difference in the world. Maybe that makes you appear more confident than you really are, and confidence takes you so far. And so I don't know. I don't know if I answered that very well, but I think that I just haven't, I haven't shied away. So,
Yeah.
and I encourage more women to do that, because I think our natural, just the way that we're wired is more like, okay, you take the limelight and everything. And I don't care anything about getting the limelight, but I still feel like I'm willing to jump in and get dirty if I
Yeah.
have to.
I love that. And I think like when you said to like confidence, and I think for you, like I know you. So like I know you're a very extroverted person. And so like you exude, I think, that confidence through that, because I do think you glean a lot of energy off of those interactions with people. But
Mhm.
not everybody is extroverted, and some people, it's a little harder. But I think just rolling up your sleeves and still just doing it, like just keep doing it. Like you don't have to be always confident. You can just look confident is by just showing up, right?
Right. Right. Well, and I
Yeah.
think that utilizing the how can I help does
Yeah.
everything, because you don't have to know the answers. But I think that that willingness, I mean, even in hiring people, I've said, it's attitude,
Yeah.
over knowledge. If you are willing to go in and go the extra mile, it makes all the difference in the world. I'll hire that person over a person with, the solid resume all day long,
Mhm.
because they're going to get the job done, and they're going to find a way.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And Ginny, I'd love to hear from you a little bit on advocacy, just experiences you've had with it, and how you see that other people can maybe advocate for themselves to things that you've learned.
Sure. I think that, like Sharon, I'm the youngest in my family, so maybe there's something there that when you're the youngest, you decide you're the boss. I don't know. I definitely came across as very bossy, usually in my
Yeah, yeah,
family.
yeah. You got
And
to
also kind
survive,
of
right? Yeah.
exactly. It's like I gotta keep this thing together.
Yeah.
Um, but on the flip side, I'm definitely a lot more introverted. So I definitely understand and relate to the struggle of, you come into a situation, even if you feel maybe confident in your knowledge or your experience or anything like that, you still just naturally are a little more shy. And so it can be a little more difficult to put yourself out there. For me, what has helped me a lot, and this is in school, jobs, and just regular life, is typically trying to think a little bit more about the other people around me. I think it's not necessarily a great trick for every single person, but for me, I think it helps because I think, especially if you are kind of introverted, you might be just so focused on your own discomfort and you're like, I'm a little afraid to kind of put myself out there. So if you just start thinking about the people around you, you kind of more naturally can come out of your shell. And when it comes to advocacy, that has helped me a lot by just thinking of the people around me. And I would say specifically the women around me that I've worked with or was in school with, because I'm typically been in a tech environment. So there aren't always as many women in it. So I think that made me even more aware of the other women around me and just trying to make sure that everyone seems heard and like they feel like they're able to speak up when they have to, things like that. So by thinking of the people around me and thinking I want to help them, I want to help support them, I want to advocate for them, it's sort of then circles back to me and I'm like, well, I should also be doing those things for myself. Like if I'm willing to do these things for other people, I need to kind of show myself the same kind of kindness, I guess. So that has helped me a lot to advocate for myself. And then I would say that sort of is translated when you're thinking about like faking it till you make it, or kind of however it is you're trying to sort of get by, especially if you get the interview and then you get the job and things like that. I like to approach things instead of constantly thinking, oh, what are they thinking about me? What does my boss think about the job I'm doing? Or I have this review coming up and what are they going to say? I like to think I'm the one reviewing them. And so I like to sort of spin it around. That's a nice trick for my anxiety, is that I flip it around and kind of think, well, I'm reviewing this job. I'm the one interviewing this person for this job that I may take. So I think that's kind of another trick if you're, a more anxious person or a little more introverted, just kind of the mental shift of flipping it around and saying, you know what, I'm the one that's reviewing them and trying to figure out if they're doing a good job or if they would be a good employer. And I think that helps too. So that's my big feedback for kind of advocating for yourself and feeling a little bit more confident is is just the shift in your mind of I'm the one, I'm the special one, and they're trying to convince me instead of me feeling like, oh, I've got to do all this stuff and do all this work and prove myself. So, not to say you shouldn't work hard, but I think that that's a way to sort of pull yourself out of it a little bit so you don't get quite so anxious and worked up in those scenarios.
Yeah, it's interesting. The word that came to mind when you were kind of explaining all that too is I was thinking of like imposter syndrome. And I feel like that's something as women, a lot of us feel at some point, and I think that that's something, especially if we even when we walk into a space full of other women, I mean, there's a lot of studies that have been done too, when we get dressed and stuff, we don't dress for men, we dress for other women, so I think it's an interesting thing that really we're kind of just in competition with ourselves, and we're really we have this measure built up that we're trying to achieve, and which adds just a lot more stress on us than is needed. But I think it's interesting that you both really touched on is just that willingness to help and thinking about other people and how that really has helped, because here with I'm just not to pick on you two because I'm here too, but when we have like a real extrovert and an introvert, but like you both really are touching on the same topics of just really kind of putting other people first. So I think that's a really interesting thread that comes about all of this, which is really why our hearts are for mentorship, because we're wanting to help other people. So it's kind of like we're just wired, to do this, which I think is really cool. So awesome. So I'm just curious, to kind of continue on. So like when it comes to this, obviously advocacy and mentorship, what why is the community so important in that? And so I'd like to maybe turn that back over to Sharon and just see like what makes the community aspect of this so important in bringing these about.
I haven't really thought about that necessarily, but I do think that, well, we can't do anything alone, and we're always better together. And I do think that as a community, Jenny's going to bring different things to the table than I will. And I think that the quicker we learn that and where we're working together is really, really important. And so I think that side of that community aspect, I mean, from all aspects. I mean, if you're thinking about for women, for mentors, for example, you're going to have that person that's going to get the award, and then they're going to work with that mentor, and that's going to grow, and we're going to have donors that will be more involved, and that's going to grow. And so you just can't do it. It has to snowball. It's got to start somewhere. And so
Agreed.
that's my best answer. I don't know, it's a great
I
answer.
think it's a great answer. Yeah, no, I think it's true. And I think just being able to just come together and just keep building on something that with good intentions. So I guess with that, and not to put you too much on the spot, but just do you have a piece of advice that you would give to another woman who maybe might be listening to this and is like struggling to find their voice and to figure out how to apply some tactics to be able to stand up for themselves? Because I mean, one of the biggest things obviously with advocacy, and there's so many ways this plays in, right? This plays a role when you're looking for a raise. This plays a role when you're trying to break out and make a move, and change paths. This comes into place if you're just trying to get something that you want in life. I mean, there's so many areas and facets where we just have to do this and have to advocate for ourselves. So yeah, what piece of advice would you give for somebody who's kind of just struggling? Like they might be listening to this and go, well, I don't understand how to do that for myself though.
Right. Well, I feel like there's a couple of different ways of thinking about that. Number one is when you think of, and I've used this analogy with you before, when you think of seeing that successful woman out there, you think that success begets success. And so she is always going to be successful, or he is always going to be successful. And that was just the way they are. And that's absolutely not the truth. I mean, every successful person has bruises and scabs and ups and downs. And if you don't have the downs, you're not going to win over and find those big ups. And I think that that can sound very cliche, but it is 100% true. You know, just like you had a huge pivot, but that turned into something really beautiful, and, you know, and that sort of thing. So I think that just just knowing that. The other thing that, as I have trained salespeople before, so I'm thinking more from a sales side of things, but I guess it really could be any kind of job function. You know, you said advocating for yourself for a raise, using that example. I've always, you know, thought from the standpoint that, you know, your leadership at your company is asking you to just ask for the world every day, to go out there and, you know, give it your all. Whether if it's sales, you know, you're going to ask for the big order. And if you are, you know, punching a widget somewhere, you're supposed to make your numbers. Whatever it is you're supposed to go above and beyond every day. So when you're advocating for yourself, you should put yourself in that same position and go, I need to ask for the moon because they're asking that of me every day. And if you don't get it, you at least try. And and then that way you can end up feeling good about yourself. You know, it's not where you're just beating yourself up because I didn't have the voice to stand up and just ask. And so that's not easy by any stretch. But I also feel like if you get that right mindset, you know, because we work against ourselves, you know, we tell ourselves we're not good enough, we're not strong enough, we're not smart enough, we're not whatever enough. But I mean, I think that you just gotta turn that table and at least put yourself out there and try. If you don't put yourself out there, you will never get it. So that first step forward is going to take you on a path from walking to running.
Oh, agreed. I think that's great advice. Yeah. And Ginny, I'd like to just pass along the same question, I think, to you and just see, you know, and if you have anything different, if you don't feel pressured, but, you know, just to see what you would say. Um,
Yeah, so something I think about a lot, and I think this works really well for me and my personality, but I think it generally seems to work for other people whenever if someone comes to me for advice and I pass this along, it does seem like most people can kind of run with this. I think that especially if you are looking to make a pretty big change in your life, or you have to, maybe it just something's happened, you have to make a big change and maybe make some decisions. I think that it can feel really overwhelming if you have this really big goal. Let's say you know the goal and it's just really big and you're just so overwhelmed and you don't know where to start or what to do. I love taking the big goal and breaking it up into as many small goals as I can, because even if the end thing is this huge step, it's never the only step. There's always going to be lots and lots of little steps you have to take in between there. And instead of kind of being paralyzed by this massive goal that you have, I think if you can kind of take a step back and just break it up into a lot of smaller steps, smaller things you can achieve along the way, I think that one thing, it's easier because you're not trying to just have this big picture thing. You're not holding this giant rock that you're trying to move around. You're basically taking the little pebbles and you're just kind of, you know, placing them in the jar one by one. And so I think if you can take a step back, it gets easier, but then also it gives you confidence. You're achieving these little things along the way. And I think that it'll, instead of you feeling like, I don't know, I'm going to fail, I can't do this, you're succeeding at all these little things. And I think that it just naturally will make you feel more confident and more prepared to keep going. So, you know, if it's something like going to school for the first time, just give yourself a goal. Today, I'm going to go online and I'm going to research the local community college. I'm going to look at a few programs, something I already know I'm interested in, or maybe I'll just look at some things that I've not looked into before. Or another goal is I'm going to talk to some of my friends and just get an idea. Hey, what do you think would be interesting for me to do? Knowing my personality, have you ever thought of a particular like program I could study or something that you think I'd be good at? Because I mean, I think for myself and Tiffany and I, we met at the same program. I had never in my life considered going into that particular program
mhm.
ever. And she and I both ended up, I think, making that decision just a few weeks before classes started. We're like, actually, this is the program. I was looking at completely different ones. And so it's funny how just different opportunities will just arise, or just it was honestly, I was just talking to some friends and they were like, seems like this might be an interesting program for you to do. And so I just kind of went for it and had never thought about it before. So I think that if you're kind of creating those little goals ahead of time to help you sort of build the blocks, you're going to achieve small things and gain confidence. And then it won't feel quite as overwhelming. You're like, well, I've already researched the school and I know that's the one I want to go to. And I narrowed it down. I said, I want to do this program. Well, what are the requirements? And just like little goals. You don't have to do everything in one day. You can break it up each day or just achieve a few things a week. Keep deadlines in mind. That's important. But I think that if you break it up into those small goals, the next thing you know, you've put yourself in the position to actually achieve that big goal, but just made it a lot easier on yourself along the way. And if you stumble, you mess up, oh, I forgot to look at that today, or I didn't have time, or whatever. It's not a big deal. Just keep going. It's not like you can never do it again just because you, I don't know, picked the wrong thing or just didn't have time to do something. Life got too busy. I think having a measure of grace for yourself is going to be helpful because it's easy to get discouraged. So just keep going. Nobody cares. It's not going to hurt anything if you accidentally picked the wrong thing or filled out a form and you put something in wrong. Whatever. It's fine. So I think just not being afraid to just keep taking those small steps. And if you stumble or hit a roadblock, just keep going. I think, even if it takes a while, even if it takes longer than you thought it would, you're still moving forward.
Yeah, I like what both of you had to say so much. And I think, my only little caveat to just kind of tie it all together, and it's just so simple, is I just like go do it afraid. It's like, yeah, I think we all, that's the thing and that's why I love bringing community and bringing women together, is the more we understand about each other, the more we go, oh my gosh, like you get scared too. You don't always feel like you belong. Oh, you had these worries, or, you've also talked yourself out of doing something important because you didn't think you could, and it doesn't matter what background we come from or what type of personality we have, or where we grow up, or maybe sometimes birth order might play into it a little bit, I don't know, but but I think it's really cool to find out how much more we have in common. And because sometimes I think it's hard, you go into a setting and you might see somebody that looks really polished and really put together and really successful, and I know, at least in my brain, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm like I wish I could get to that level. I'm like, wow, like that's so great, like wow, it must be so easy for them, and like that's right immediately where my brain goes. But it's in these interactions like we're having here, when you talk to somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, like this was not an easy journey for them, or oh my goodness, like if I knew what they had gone through this week, like I would never have had that first impression. And it's just, this is why we're trying to lift each other up. So to kind of pivot a little bit, some stats I've got that I kind of wanted to talk about, which is kind of why we're trying to help women with this scholarship, which our scholarship is currently open. It is open till the end of the month. It is available for women returning to education that are located in Northeast Georgia or Western North Carolina. There's more information about it on our website, womenformentors.com. But I think it's interesting is that, so in the US, women are 43% more likely than men to have a career break on their resume. And so I think that that's, it's interesting, and this is why we are focused on women, is because it's like we recognize that that's really hard. It's very hard to re-enter the workforce after you've taken a break, maybe for whatever reason. Oftentimes it's because we had children or what have you, and it's not an easy thing, but with that, 98% of women who take a career break express interest in wanting to return to the career field. So, I think knowing that there's such a significant amount of women that are having these life changes, but also want to re-enter, I think that's why we're trying to create a path that's just a little bit smoother, because it's one thing that we can sit here and talk about it, but we're trying to put some action behind our words. So yeah, I just appreciate so much what, y'all are doing with me in this and trying to build this up, and just create this really awesome space. Roundtable should be just an easy discussion, open, available. So I mean, is there anything that y'all around this area would like to add, or anything like that relates to what we're doing here at Women for Mentors, or just around the topic of mentorship?
I think that we're seeing more and more women's groups just organically forming. I'm seeing supper clubs, and I'm seeing master classes, and I'm seeing obviously your group and so many other types of things. So I think that knowing the power of community and really embracing that. And you were talking about the fear of joining, and I walked into a networking function at one point, and it was all female CEOs, that sort of thing. And I'm thinking, I've got a lot more to take from this group than I have to give. And so you start the self-talk, and then you realize that you've got that angle. And so, but you have to get out there. I guess that's been my theme for the whole discussion today is, putting yourself out there, because you'll never know. And so if I had shied away, then what would I have gained? But I really have gained so much, because I do really feel like when it comes down to it, we do want to lift one another up. And so it's one of those things. All you got to do is ask. All you got to do is put yourself out there, and you're going to find your place. And your place may not be at the very top, and that's okay. That's not for everybody, And so I think that having those realistic goals, and what Jenny said is those little wins along the way is fabulous. So anyway, that would be my takeaway, I guess.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that, and thinking that especially if you are entering a situation like some sort of group that maybe you think I'm sort of at the bottom, I don't have as much experience, whatever. Realizing that maybe you don't have as much experience being a CEO, but maybe you have way more experience doing this other thing, and not being afraid to, and I say this as someone who gets nervous about having conversations, but not being afraid to get into that conversation and just see where it goes, because you never know. It could be anything that someone else brings up, and you're like, actually, I know a lot about that, or I had a similar experience, and this is kind of how it worked out or how I handled it. And so just because you may not know a ton about this one thing doesn't mean that you just have nothing to offer and that you're only going to be learning from others. Because I think that, as we've said, when you're in a group, especially with a lot of women from different areas and different backgrounds, and this woman has 5 kids, and this one has 0, and this woman's been married, and this woman has always been single, and this woman has traveled the world, and this woman hasn't. There's just having that diversity there, I think, just helps everyone in the group, helps lift up the entire group, I think. And I mean, it's hard to take that first step, but you can take it, and it'll be scary, and you'll probably be nervous, but I guarantee a lot of other people doing it are also nervous. So we're all just sort of trying to get out there. So I think just being open to the situation, it might end up leading to something you didn't expect. So I think that it's good to have some ideas and goals in mind, but sometimes you could just go to something or join an event, and you don't really know exactly where it's going to go, but who knows? It could lead somewhere really amazing. So I think just being open to that, I think, is a good attitude to have.
I love that. And I think that nods a little bit to what you mentioned earlier, Sharon, too. It's just like getting involved and stuff like that. So I think just being open, right? Like just being open and available. And not that you have to fully take on the mantra of being like a yes woman, but, you know, just being ready to take on kind of what's presented around you, whether it scares you or not, because sometimes that's like the coolest things are, you know, come out, or best connections come out of that, or what have you. You know, like we talked, Sharon, earlier about how we got connected. I mean, Ginny and I were in the same program, surrounded by a lot of boys, a lot of men, and a couple of women sprinkled in, but not very many. And you know, it was a tech program, and very smart people, but also a very quiet crowd. And so it was very hard to kind of connect and talk to other people, because these are people that honestly spend a lot of time behind the computer and not, you know, wanting to really interact. And so we just kind of happened to just be waiting for the teacher to show up, waiting in the hall, and it was just like, hi, hey, you know, it's a very just like, how are you, you know, and we just had to take, because we were, you know, it was just such a quiet environment. We were just like, let's break the silence, you know, and we did, and then became really great friends, and here we are today. So I think, you know,
Right.
yeah, just do it afraid, take those opportunities. And I, even myself, I'm always surprised at who wants to like know what I know, you know. I mean, if I ever get invited to speak at something or do something, I'm like, really, you want to hear what's happening in here? I'm like, okay. And I don't do it, you know, because I feel super confident. Like even before we had this meeting right here, I had the little butterflies kind of start up. I'm like, oh, it's the first meeting. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. And you know, I don't do it because I feel like, oh, this is what I meant to do. It's really just because I do it because I'm like, you know what, if I put one foot in front of the other, you know, good things seem to follow, you know. And that's where, you know, you really can get to the next place in life. And so I love, you know, the taking little chunks of things in life, keeping your expectations, you know, at a manageable place. You know, sometimes we look too far ahead at the end goal that we can't see how to get just to the next step, you know. And so I think this is all really great advice for people, and I think it just really speaks to so much of the heart of what we're trying to create, is to create a place where people can feel a little less burdened by life. So I love it, and I appreciate you guys. So just to kind of set the expectations a little bit going forward. So today was very casual. I mean, we're all board members and a part of Women for Mentors ourselves. Going forward, our goal is to make it so this is a really comfortable environment. So for anyone wanting to participate and join in with us, we don't expect you to have your audio on. We don't expect you to have your camera on. We would prefer you don't, and just use the chat to ask questions. And it's not because we don't want to see you or we don't love you. It's just because we want to keep this as a space where, you know, you feel comfortable to pop in at your convenience, and this feels like a really comfortable space for you. And that way it also gives our guests that we do have, because we've been lining up some really great people, awesome women in different industries from all over the place with their own stories that we're going to talk to about different topics. Today was just more casual, trying to introducing ourselves, but we want to talk about important things, relevant topics, things that we think will help other women, help our community, and hopefully even help ourselves. So, you know, that's just to kind of set the expectation, what it looks like going forward. We really hope that, you know, you follow us, find us on our website, womenformentors.com. You find us on LinkedIn. That's a great place to connect with any one of us and be able to be a part of the community. We also have a group that we've created on there. And the goal in that is that that's also part of the space where you can find other women to ask questions, get opinions about, stay up to date on what events are going on and what we have happening. So we just really look forward to connecting with you, and we just appreciate, you joining in with us, coming on this journey. And I just want to thank Sharon Lee and Ginny Overbay so much for being here today and conversating and just kicking this off. I mean, celebrating our 1 year. So thank you all.
Yeah, it was great.
Happy to have us, or happy to be here.
Awesome. All right. Thank you all. Well, we'll sign off for now, and till next time.